I want to talk about Paris. I've always loved Paris, and I don't know why. I think it's a childhood fantasy. But when I went there for the first time, my fantasy, it was real. I was like, this is the most pretty city I've ever seen in my life. Now, I was raised in a ghetto, Carroll City, Florida. It is a ghetto, and it even was when I was there. So there were shootings in the high school, and so that's why we were sent to private Christian school so we wouldn't get shot. Um, yeah, and when I was a teenager, we moved to a better neighborhood, but that was because of me, because I drove my bike through Elizabeth's neighborhood, Miami Shores, and I was like, how come she gets to live here and I don't? My dad teaches gymnastics here. So I called the number on the real estate sign in some random house. I was like 14 or 13, and the lady thought I sounded like a child. And she called, she says, I'll call you back. And she called back, and my mom answered. And my mom said, oh, I didn't call any realtor. And then I said, oh, mommy, I did. I did. And then the lady's like, my mom's like, we can't afford to buy a new house. And the lady said, well, let's talk about it. I have this house that's up for sale. It's very marked down because there was a divorce. And anyway, my family moved to this really nice neighborhood where the doctors lived because of me. Anyway, so I don't know why I loved Paris, but I think I just thought it had beautiful castles and princesses, and it does. But so what happened? Oh, me and Laura, that Laura B, went to Paris. I don't know if you know, because I put Instagrams up on my Instagram from our trip there, and I put photo by Laura B. And Laura was sweet enough to go with me, and it happened kind of impulsively and suddenly. And when I first asked Laura to go with me, she laughed a beautiful, fantastic laugh because we never met in person before. But I knew her heart. I knew her heart from our group, and I knew we'd just gone through the same thing, the same horrible pain of our husbands leaving. You guys were here when I was on the Zoom, and I got the text from Paul that said, I'm filing for divorce. Stay away from me, get a lawyer. He said it a million times, but because he put it in writing, I knew it was for real because he always puts on his show and the daughters would see it and they would be mad at him. And actually, when I showed my daughters, they got mad at me. I guess, yeah, I don't know. We could talk about that for a long time. Anyway, um, so basically, I've had a very difficult last 6 months. I mean, it started with May 8th. My husband said he was filing for divorce. The reason why he was super mad was because on the night of the tornado, he went to a cigar bar with a lady from the gym. I told him that hurts me. I did use a bad word when I told him that. I After 5 hours, I went to the cigar. Long story. Anyway, I went to the lady the next day at the gym, and I said, "Could you please not go to bars with my husband anymore?" I said it really sweet and quiet and nice because she's a Christian. Her name's Vicky. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make up reality is better than fiction. And she started shaking and yelling. And she said, are you accusing me of having an affair with your husband? I said, no, I'm accusing you of going to a bar with my husband. Please don't go to bars with him anymore. He doesn't listen to me. Anyway, he quit the gym that day. I don't know what happened, but I think he was embarrassed. I don't know what happened, but he quit working at the gym and he quit smoking cigars this summer because he thought he had mouth cancer from cigars. So first, he went to the bar, then he got mad that I asked them not to do that. Then he said, "I'm filing for divorce," and then I spent like 10 days alone in my we have 2 houses because he keeps threatening this, but I hate being alone at night, so I was here alone, and I was thinking, "Lord, okay, you're my Lord, you're my Savior, what should I do? What does Christmas look like? Is he bringing a girlfriend? How do I do it? What lawyer do you want me to call? We split the money, how does this work? Do I have to sell this how it's so much, and I'm old, and I'm tired, and I don't have the energy, and I felt rejected. It's the worst feeling in the world, and I know how Laura felt, and you can't relate unless you've been through it. If you've been cheated on or abused, which a lot of you have, by a husband or whatever, you understand how much it hurts. All we want to do is love them and be loved by them. And we love Jesus. So we forgive and we forgive and we forgive and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know what to do. I got lonely, very lonely. So I went back to the little house every night, even though he wasn't talking to me. At least I was sleeping in a house where there was a human and an ex SWAT guy. So I feel safe, even though he could probably kill me. Anyway, so he wasn't talking to me. And then Amy came over from Genesis Group. We put on worship music and she was going to pray with me. And Paul walks in the living room and he goes into this long monologue showing Amy what a great guy he is. He hadn't even spoken to me. And then he says to me, "Oh, Vicky, you can pick out the new mailbox." I'm like, "What?" And then he leaves the room. I'm like, "Amy, he just asked me for a divorce. I don't know why. Does that mean we're not getting?" It's like playing with my mind all the time. It's abuse. It's abuse. Denise knows, she's a therapist. Anyway, then a couple nights later, he comes into my room. We hadn't spoken, he hadn't apologized, he hadn't said I've changed my mind, nothing. And he goes, Vicky, I think I have mouth cancer from cigars. And I told God that that it's my only idol. It's my idol. And I have a sore in my mouth and I know it's cancer. And I just want you to know that you're financially taken care of. And I go, "Oh, you just asked for divorce. Why do you care if I'm financially, this is so confusing." And then he mumbled, and I go, "What?" And he mumbled like 3 times. I go, "What?" And he goes, "I don't want a divorce." I go, "Okay, you don't want a divorce. Okay, okay, okay." So this is the game he plays with me all 30 years. And it hurts my stomach, and I think it gave me cancer. Anyway, makes me stressed out all the time. So then, I don't remember the exact order of events, but I wanted to see Paris before I die. I've had cancer since 2016 now, since 2015, and it's come back. I don't think I was diagnosed yet, but I thought I got to get tickets early so I get my favorite hotel and first class because I am not going to sit in a chair for 10 hours. I'm going to lay down. I cannot sit in the airplane chair for 10 hours anymore. So I wanted to use my last chunk of money from my mom's inheritance. So anyway, I text Laura and I go, "You want to go to Paris with me or something?" Laura, I don't remember the details. Or I called her or something and she laughed so hard. And she bravely, very bravely said yes. She didn't know what she was getting into. Is she going to be pushing me in a wheelchair through the Louvre? I actually bought, and I was doing very badly then. I was coughing all the time and I was so weak I couldn't walk to my car. I actually bought an electric wheelchair. It's in my home. And I called the airlines and I said, can I bring an electric wheelchair on the plane? I called the hotel. I called the Louvre. I was like, do you allow do you have wheelchairs? I didn't want her to be pushing me. It's like, hey, you want to go to Paris and push me in a wheelchair all over town? You know, I've pushed one before. They're heavy when there's a heavy person in them. I thought that would be so rude. So I was making all these calls, and Laura was so sweet. And she's like, yes. I'm like, yes. And we both thought it was a divine thing. I mean, it sounds weird, but we did. We thought it was a Jesus thing. Because when your man says, I don't want you, I'm leaving you, I don't want, and you're like, okay, I'm 60. Am I supposed to start dating now? And look, oh, am I supposed to get all cute again and go out on the town and, I mean, seriously. So I knew Laura would understand. And I thought we could distract each other. And you know what? God is our God, not a husband, not a man. Oh, God protects us. God takes care of us. And the thing God kept saying to me through all my bad marriage things was, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul and all thy mind. It didn't say love your husband with all your heart and soul and mind. It says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, and women, wives, submit to your husbands. It doesn't say worship our husbands. Anyway, me and Laura thought it was a God thing. I still do. And then I said, let's make a movie out of it. And Laura was on board for that. And I didn't know she had movie making skills. And I kind of knew she was artistic, but she has super good movie skills. Plus, her ex husband was an editor and she knows how to edit. She knows all about coming into a shot and then leaving footage after so you can edit. She knows about lighting, everything. She doesn't even know how much she knows. And I knew she was artistic, but she's an artist. She's like a real artist. She was perfect to go to the Louvre with. My husband, when I took him 3 years ago, was like this. Is it over yet? Is the Louvre over yet? I mean, my husband was like, I dragged him 3 years ago. Okay, so this was my first time in Paris. This was, okay, it's a little shockingly, I was trying to be sexy. It was my first husband took that. Look at that old TV and the wallpaper. We got a free trip because of lifestyles of the rich and famous. Because I was on SNL, and the trick is they make it look like I was just romping in Cologne, Germany, Cologne, whatever. I'm just romping, and they pick me up. No, it's all a commercial. They show the airplane I fly on, they show the hotel I'm in, they show the, and it's a commercial, but I get a free trip. So me and the fire eater husband went there, and I made us go to Paris after Germany, but the Gulf War was starting, and F-14 fighter jets were flying over our head, and I was like, oh no, what's that? And all the channels on TV were not in English, and I thought World War III was starting. It was the Gulf War. And I was so nervous because my daughter was 2 and she was back in America with my mom. And I was like, I, oh no, World War III is starting. What if I never see my child again? What if all so I flew home. I didn't see anything in Paris, so it doesn't count. I didn't see anything. Just took that picture and got on a plane early and came home. Second time I went to Paris was with Paul 3 years ago. And this hotel I got online with that view, and I didn't know if it was really legit. I didn't know if I'd get there and it'd be a cardboard box because when you do stuff online, you never know. And so that trip, Paul was not having fun. He hates traveling. So I was like, I gotta go back someday. I didn't really see everything or whatever. So Laura was so sweet. And we have a film so we can show you everything we did. We had so many adventures. Speaking of being tricked online, I said, Laura, I got these 2 tickets to Notre Dame. It just opened again. And we got to Notre Dame and found out my tickets were for a virtual reality Notre Dame. And but it didn't say so on the internet. It said VR. And it didn't say anything except VR. I didn't know what VR meant. And so they put this machine on our eyes and a huge thing on us, and we're supposed to walk into a white room and see the fake Notre Dame. And Laura was pushing me in a wheelchair in there because they had wheelchairs nearby. And I was too weak to, like at the Louvre, I had to sit on the floor sometimes, but because I was so tired. But she was pushing me in a wheelchair in this virtual reality thing, and I was getting dizzy and getting a headache from it. And I said, I can't finish this, you finish. So I went and sat outside the white room, and she loved it and finished it and came out with her equipment on. And she said, take a picture of my funny outfit because we were videoing everything. I said, wait, let me get my cell phone. And she turned around, and the weight of turning around with all the equipment made her spin and smash into the wall. I mean, she smashed her head into the wall. Thank you, Lord, we didn't end up in a French emergency room. She hurt her wrist because she broke her fall, and she didn't complain or anything. Why are you hiding your eyes, Laura? It was so fun. It was so good for the movie. Oh, so good for the movie. Oh my goodness. And we got on film our taxi driver yelling at a lady in her car, and they were saying the C word, and we got it on film anyway. And it was so much fun. But it was so funny because we were like, how do we tell our group? Because, like, what do you do? Like, conversation time. Let's talk about the Bible. Oh, me and Laura went to Paris. I didn't know when to tell everyone. I'm like, Laura's like, I don't know. I'm like, when would Wendy squeeze it in? I don't know. So tonight was perfect. But what I wanted to say was it our will, my will, or was it God's will? I think when you're abiding in Him, I think He uses everything for His glory. And when I was there, when we were in the Musée Orsay, uh, after our tour, I had an erythemataxis interview. And so I was on my cell phone internationally, which was a nightmare. And we were talking about art. And me and Laura, we interviewed both of our tours of the Louvre and the Musée Orsay. And we were talking about the value of art. Now there's a picture of Jesus. It's a really scary, icky picture of him, and it's the most expensive piece of art in the world. And it's like $1 billion or something. Someone paid for it. And it's like, I wouldn't even pay $5 for it. It's ugly to me. And so we were talking to our guides about the value of art. And she was saying, one of them, it's whatever is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's whatever you're willing to pay. And so when I was on Eric's show, I said, that reminds me of a poem I wrote in like 1972 or something. This was my Florida Bible College newsletter, and they published it. And I want to read it to you. And also I wanted to tell you that Laura, in the middle of the night, she her speaking of fires, she had all these poems she wrote that burned up in a house fire in with the winds, right, Laura? She from California winds fire. 20 years ago, was it, Laura? 20, and all of her poems burned up. And that was so sad to me because my poems are like my children. Like, you can't remember them unless you write them down or something. And in the middle of the night in Paris, she remembered one of them at 3 in the morning. We had jet lag. China's right. Jet lag is a horrible problem. We were so mixed up and tired. And in the middle of the day, we were tired. And the night we woke, it was so crazy. Anyway, and the other cool thing is, okay. Anyway, I know I'm going overtime. I'll just be 2 more minutes. Okay, Terry? 2 more minutes? Okay, let me read this poem first, and then I'll tell you the other things. An old stamp. Once a little old man who lived alone saw an ad in the town crier that said for a certain old stamp there was an interested buyer. The man wouldn't have given much notice, except that that very same day, while cleaning his desk, he had seen that same stamp on a letter he'd thrown away. When he saw the ad, he quickly threw the paper down and ran to find it, and there was the treasure, glued to a letter in his garbage can. The buyer came over and bought it. The old man was merry and glad, though he couldn't quite understand what value his old worn out stamp had. The stamp was only a square inch of paper, a worthless thing, needless to say, whose value was not in itself, but in how much the buyer was willing to pay. And so am I to God, just a worthless lump of clay, who has no importance at all in myself, but has value through the price Jesus did pay. I am so important to God that he left all the splendor above to become a mere man and die just for me. To him, I was worth that much love. So that poem, that when I was looking at the art, I was like, oh, it reminded me. I couldn't remember it, but I'm so happy I found it. But anyway, Laura's poem she remembered, and I told her to read it from her phone. She woke up in the middle of the night, put it in her phone, remembered it all, which is so amazing. The human brain after 20 years. And then I asked her to read it on Eric Metaxas show because it's really good. And anyway, the other great thing was I wanted to name this Victoria Jackson's international farewell tour. And Laura said first farewell tour, and Paul said first farewell tour. So I thought on the mark on the poster it could be like first squeezed in there. But anyway, I thought it would be funny if I'm playing my ukulele and singing my songs all over Paris and nobody cares. Because nobody does care. Like, sorry, I'm leaving. Like Cher's farewell tour and Cyndi Lauper's farewell tour. Goodbye, everybody. I know you're gonna miss me and my art, but I gotta go. I gotta die now. Sorry. Gotta go to heaven now. And but nobody cares. So it's not like I'm Taylor Swift and I had like stadiums full of people, you know. So Laura took me in front of the Sacre Coeur and in front of the Eiffel Tower, playing the uke, nobody listening. And then the climax of the movie is Laura had this idea to find an open mic night because then they would have to let me sing. So Laura found like a bunch of them, and we were so tired at weird times. We finally found a night when we had the energy, and we struggled our 60-year-old bodies down the dark alley into this bar called the Highlander. And I asked the guy if I could go on first so we wouldn't have to wait till 2 in the morning. I said, I have cancer. And all the people were 20-year-olds, and they let me go first. And Laura got on video, the audience liking me because it was an English, Laura found an English speaking open mic. They're French, but they're English speech. So they got all my jokes. So when I was singing in English, they got it in English and they laughed at all the right times. And so I'm editing our little movie now, which is a good thing to do. So it's distracting me from my cancer. And I'm hoping it's distracting Laura from her situation and inspiring her because she has so much more to live for than a creepy man. Her ex is a creepy guy. And I love her so much. We bonded. And so anyway, our little secret's out. And it was awesome. And now we want to go back, but I don't have any more money, so we'll have to figure out how to do that. So anyway, I guess to leave it with Jesus, What should I leave with Jesus? I have so much to talk about. Well, uh, yeah, I think our movie is, I think of it as a witnessing evangelism tool because I sing my song Expiration Date in it, and Jesus is in it. And the verse, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. I I I think that's a really cool verse because the last little movie I was in, I asked the director if I could put in Jesus, and he said okay. And I was just interviewed about it. See, I'm rambling. I'm sorry, Terry. I'm sorry, everybody. I know we only get 12 minutes or something. I'll tell it all. I'll tell it all in my next one. Let me just end with this. So my friend Elizabeth says, I agree with Julia Sweeney. And I'm like, well, so I made her watch this video of Julia Sweeney trashing me on stage. And her friend Jill Sobel sings this song about suicide. And her friend sings this song that says, I wanna lay on a highway somewhere in New Mexico, wait for the bright light to come and take me home. I'm gonna stand by the statue and wait for her to cry. I wanna see a miracle once before I die. Okay, so this is an atheist writing a song about suicide and how she's kind of bitter, and she's like, if I could just, see the statue of Mary cry or whatever, if I could just see a miracle once before I die. So I was writing a response to that, which I did send to Julia Sweeney and her friend a couple years ago. I don't know if you guys have heard it on my channel, but it goes, you don't want to hear it. You don't want to see. You are way too cool to believe in deity. You might lose your swagger if you walk with the divine or peek even peripherally at Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. You might gain the whole world and lose your very soul. You might lose your edge if the Savior takes control. You might start to soften. You may change your plans if you look up at the one who carved your name into his hands. Here's the miracle that you've been waiting for. Here's the light that will take you home someday. Here's the greatest love story ever written. Here's the life, here's the truth, here's the way. Might understand the gospel if you would ever hear it and be born again, not of water but the Spirit. You might drop your baggage and leave it at the cross. Give away your treasures and count it all as lost. Creator of the universe seeks your company. Don't you want to see him face to face for all eternity? Here's the miracle that you've been waiting for. Here's the light that will take you home someday. Here's the greatest love story ever written. Here's the life. Here's the truth. Anyway, it goes on. Thank you. Scene.